Hey guys, this is Sandeep from FoneArena, and today we are going to take a look at the Huawei P10 smartphone that is built for camera enthusiasts especially. So this smartphone is the successor of the Huawei P9, and we'll be taking a look at what has changed in terms of the hardware as well as the software and how Huawei has made this a better performer all around in terms of being a camera smartphone. So let's start with the hardware itself. The Huawei P9 had two Leica lens system, and this too follows the same Leica lens system with dual sensors. Now what's different here is that the Huawei P9 had two 12 megapixel sensors, one which is RGB and the other which is monochrome. On the P10 you however get two sensors which are also RGB and monochrome, but the difference here is that the monochrome sensor has a higher resolution of 20 megapixels and the RGB sensor has a resolution of 12 megapixels. Now the difference here is that the monochrome sensor actually takes all the details and the better dynamic range, while the RGB one collects the information based on the color. So this works together and you can actually create images with up to 20 megapixels of resolution, and that's quite good. Aside from that, the P9 actually had a laser autofocus module at the back, while this only comes with face detection autofocus. Now laser autofocus was more of a hit and miss, while face detection autofocus is almost always reliable. So this is something that is a positive change if implemented well. Now we won't know that for sure until we do the review, but for now this is a really welcome change in my books at least. You also get a dual tone LED flash, and the entire thing is housed in a glass module just like the Huawei P9 as well as the Nexus 6P smartphones. So both of these have an aperture of f2.2, and apart from that, this has also improved the focus on the videography abilities aside from just photography. The Huawei P9 was actually something that was meant mainly for photography enthusiasts and did ignore some of the video aspects, and we'll talk about this when we come to the software aspect of the smartphone. Now moving on to the front, this time around you also get a Leica certified front-facing camera with 8 megapixels of resolution. So you can expect to get the Leica sort of color, texture and feel from the photos as you would with the back camera itself. So this is the hardware of the Huawei P10. Now the difference between the P10 and the P10 Plus is mainly in terms of the front camera, which also has a depth sensor apart from the Leica branding at the front, and the P10 Plus also has f1.8 aperture for both of the lenses at the back, while the P10 has just 2.2 aperture. But considering that it has a monochrome sensor for higher dynamic range and more detailing, the low light performance and the better dynamic range should be available in both the smartphones, although it could be a tad bit better on the P10 Plus. So this here is the camera interface of the Huawei P10 smartphone. So let's go ahead and start with the various modes available. So over here you have the photo mode, which does as it says, it is just to take photos, and this makes use of both the monochrome camera as well as the RGB camera. You also have a Pro mode here, which you can enable by swiping upwards, and this will give you all the manual controls that you would need, especially in terms of the white balance, the autofocus modes, the exposure compensation, shutter speed, ISO and the metering. Now when you go back to the modes, you will also notice a monochrome mode. So the monochrome mode makes use of only the 20 megapixel monochrome sensor, and the difference here is that a monochrome doesn't necessarily mean that it's a black and white photo. It just means that there are two tones and it can be any shade of it. A sepia photo, for example, is still a monochrome photo, but in this case this will give you better dynamic range, you'll get better detailing, and it's not just a matter of turning a photo into black and white. So if you actually compare the photos taken by the Huawei P10 or even the P9 of the last generation, the monochrome photos will look much better than the regular black and white photo that you do in post-processing on any other smartphone. Then here you have the video mode, and you can also switch to a video mode by using this button here. And once you switch to a video mode, you can see that there is a bit of a zoom in terms of the field of view. Apart from that, you also have the other mode, Hdr mode. So this will boost your dynamic range even further than just using the monochrome and the RGB sensor. You have a panorama mode over here. You have a night shot mode, which actually bumps up the ISO, and you can even override the settings manually if you want in terms of the ISO as well as the shutter speed. So the lowest shutter speed you can go is 32 seconds, and that is quite insane. We have seen smartphones going up to 30 seconds, but not all of them allow 30 seconds or even more. And then is the light painting mode, which is actually one of my favorites. What this does is it allows you to mimic sort of long shutter speed effect by using stacking. instead of actually using. So for example, if you're in bright daylight and you want to shoot a waterfall, you can use the silky water feature over here, and it'll stack the moving images of the water, and you'll get a silky sort of feel that you would get by using an ND filter on a camera, for example. The same works with car trail lights, light graffiti, and the star tracking method. You also get a time-lapse mode, a slow motion mode, watermark mode, audio note, document scan, and you can even download further modes from the internet. So this is the slow-mo mode, and you can see that it maxes out at full HD at 120 frames per second, and you also have an option of recording it at 720p. So now let's take a look at the video recording mode, which is actually a huge step up compared to the P9 smartphone of last year. So the P9 actually did provide quite good video recording in terms of the detailing as well as the dynamic range, but not as good in terms of resolution. So this actually has a 4K video recording mode, UHD 4K, and it also comes with the 1080p 60 FPS as well. So aside from that, you can also choose some of the color modes as well, because this has Leica branding. You can choose the standard color, vivid color, or smooth color. So you'll notice how the color profile actually changes in each of these settings, and this is applicable on photos as well as videos. And the smooth color is actually the kind of Leica color that you would expect. You have a beauty mode, and you also have a wide aperture mode in both video as well as photo, which is actually a first. So wide aperture mode allows you to set the kind of depth of field you want from all the way from f.95 to f16, and so this will mimic the depth of field that is available on a DSLR or a camera that has adjustable aperture, for example. And this is the first time that this actually making its way into videos as well, and this could be used by professional video or filmmakers to a great extent. Now when you go back to the photo, you again get the same thing, but you also get some stuff like the filters over here. You can see that there's an ND filter for blue, or dawn, nostalgia, etc. And you also get the portrait mode, which actually crops into it. So this is actually a hybrid zoom. It makes use of the 20 megapixel sensor, the monochrome sensor, as well as the 12 megapixel RGB sensor in order to give you a more of a cropped field of view. And it also allows you to basically have a person in focus while the background is out of focus. And again over here as well, you have the wide aperture mode, which you can use to set the aperture. So now when you go into settings for the photos, you can see the resolution is at 12 megapixel by default, because that is the resolution of the RGB sensor. But you can also shoot up to 20 megapixels, since it actually combines the information taken from the monochrome sensor as well as the RGB sensor. You also get other features such as a camera grid. If you want to get assistance for your composition, you get a timer, you get audio control, you have capture smiles, touch to capture, and various other assistants as well. Now let's take a look at the front camera. So up front, you can see that you again get quite a lot of options. So here is the filter mode, where you can choose the filters based on what you want the photo to look like, and you also get the portrait mode over here. And you can see that it's already blurring out the background, and I can choose to make the effect stronger or weaker based on my liking. So that was a quick look at the camera features, the hardware as well as software of the Huawei P10. Now the P10 Plus is different mainly in terms of the aperture for the rear cameras, which has f1.8, but other than that it's quite similar to the P10. So this can be used as a way to judge whether you like the camera on the P10 and the P10 Plus. So that was a quick look. If you like this video, do hit the like button and do subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.